Hello, this is Ross Pittman of ConsciousLifeNews.com, and I have on the phone Kimberly Gamble, who is the producer and co-creator of the movie Thrive, along with her husband Foster. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi,
how are
Ross.
you today?
Nice to be here with you.
Yeah, it's really great to be talking with you. I know that Thrive is being viewed quite a bit on the Internet these days and in multiple languages. Could you kind of update us on that?
Yeah, it's really exciting. Thrive has been being seen regularly by over 1 million people a month. So it's documented over 14 million views, and I'm sure there are many more, but that's how many I can officially count. It's in 23 languages, and it's been very encouraging to see how many people are, ready for this kind of coherent picture, and most importantly then to engage in leverage solutions. That's really what we're finding. Foster and I traveled to probably 30 different cities in the last 16 months, and everywhere it's, packed houses of people who are really ready to engage effectively together now. And so it's just inspiring and rewarding and all around a great experience.
The reason why we're even having this conversation was that I attended your outstanding workshop that you and Foster gave at the Conscious Life Expo titled How to Transform the World by Doing What You Love. And it was really, really a terrific workshop. I had multiple aha moments. One of them was for the need for activists to organize their efforts. The global domination agenda is so well organized across multiple sectors. So in order for activists to deal with the issues, we also need to be organized just as they are across multiple sectors. And so you talked a little bit about the Thrive Solutions Hub and how that provides an organizational model that can facilitate that. And I even wrote an article about it. But in short, I don't want to go into a lot of detail on that today, but can you just talk to that just for a few moments?
Yeah, I think that this consolidation of wealth and power shows up in every single sector of human endeavor, and there's all kinds of coordination and strategic organization around that, and yet and there are hundreds of millions of people who are engaged in very thoughtful solutions. But they're not coordinated in their efforts, they're not sharing best practices, and they're not organized and strategic about that. And so what happens is it's just not a match. And so what I see, the thing about being the producer is my job is to kind of, get a real strategic look at, okay, if this is where we're going, the ultimate goal, then what are all the things that need to be done in order to get there? And so when I look at the agenda for consolidation of power and control and wealth and all the rest that's happening, I think, okay, if we're going to really effectively stop that and create a world that actually works for everyone, what are the things that need to be done? And one, for sure, is getting more organized by sector. And so one, it's kind of a strategic response, and the other thing is it's kind of just based in reality that, everybody who cares about an issue doesn't actually care about the same aspect of the issue. And so what happens a lot of times is that activists will get overwhelmed. I mean, you look at Chemtrails, for example. I think every city we went to, there was somebody working to stop chemtrails or find out more about them. But those the groups weren't organized and coordinated with each other, but also the people who were in those groups felt like they had to take on the whole thing. When in fact, if you could sit with them, as we did, and unpack it, we found that, somebody was actually motivated to find out, is it happening? What's the evidence for it? Somebody else wants to find out what's in it, what are the chemicals, what are the chemical reactions. Someone else wants to find out what are the health impacts on people. Someone else wants to do follow the money and find out who's funding it. Somebody else wants to inform the media, and someone else wants to do the artwork to convene the community. Really everyone has a different purpose and passion in relation to what looks, it's a common concern, but the way at it is different. So it's not just strategic in that it matches the agenda coming at us, but it's also just more realistic about human beings and who we are and how we operate, and that when we get organized, one of the things we find out is that we don't each have to do it all. We have to do the part that's uniquely right for us. And so at thrivemovement.com, we created this Solutions Hub where you get to identify what sector are you actually most passionate about. Like, if you're concerned about chemtrails, is it that you want to help educate people, or is it that you want to do a class action lawsuit, or you want to do the scientific data gathering? I mean, there's all different sectors that you might want to naturally be affiliated with. And then the next step is, and you self-identify that, and you identify, like, what's the level of engagement that you're most naturally drawn to? Is it to, gather the data yourself, doing soil tests and things like that, or is it to unpack the system of funding to figure out who's behind it in that way, or is it to address more the consciousness shift of what is it that allows people to stand by while their fundamental rights are being violated, and in fact while the law is being violated in the course of that. So the point of the Solutions Hub is that it gives people a chance to see that they can do their own part while other people are tending to the other part, and that we can coordinate all that and share the data with each other and make huge headway, whereas otherwise, you take the whole thing on, you do parts of it that you aren't really that motivated or impassioned about, but they need to be done, and you burn out and kind of have the old model. And I think it's clear that it's time for a new model of coordinating our effort. The point of it also is to empower self-creating movements. It's not to be the movement. It's to provide tools for all of the everybody who's working on any of the many solutions that are out there. So that's kind of a long answer to to how I see the need for organization and coordination.
That's brilliant. That it made so much sense to me. In fact, it made so much sense to me, I thought I should write it down. And so I wrote an article. It's called The Thrive Solutions Hub, an evolutionary tool for resolving critical world issues by enabling activists to pool their resources and talents. Before I posted it, I got some feedback from Kimberly, and I appreciate your help there. I've posted it on ConsciousLifeNews.com, and I believe you also posted it on the Thrive Movement website. Is that correct?
Yeah, we did. We really appreciated it. It seemed like a very thoughtful and coherent piece that you wrote, so I recommend it.
Well, and I want to thank you for your feedback and your support with that. I guess the second aha that I walked out of that workshop with was when you made the statement, "We believe we can stop chemtrails." That got me excited. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah. One of the things that Foster and I had an opportunity, I'll call it, to experience was in 2007 there was this aerial spray happening in Northern California. And it was actually a billion-dollar 10-year program between the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Homeland Security. And what was happening is they were doing a spray supposedly to address a pest infestation of the light brown apple moth. Anyway, this spraying was going on, and we realized that it was an opportunity to use this whole system's all-sector approach, because it started in Monterey, it was moving up to Northern California, and there were plenty of people who were concerned about it. But like I said, people actually had different orientations. And so we convened a meeting at our house, actually, and the next day there was a town hall meeting, and we set up tables by sector. So there were people, Foster and I wanted to sign up under economics and follow the money and find out who was funding it. And somebody else really there were birds dying, and they wanted to test the birds and find out what was happening there. And somebody else with soil and bees and water. And anyway, someone else wanted to get into the media. Someone else wanted to do a class action lawsuit. So we signed up by sector to see who wanted to naturally take on which part of it. And then we organized around getting back together every other week to share the information so that you really got a boost ahead, seeing how much other people were doing while you were doing your part. And essentially what happened was by doing this, we moved so quickly and so strategically that we were able to effectively stop the spray and shut down, like I said, this billion-dollar program. And probably cost us $30,000 total, and stopped it before the spray even got past us too far into Northern California. So the success of that fueled us because we realized that with chemtrails, it's going to be much the same process. I really think with any issue, it's much the same process, but especially with an aerial spray. This one's simply happening globally and at a higher level. But the strategy behind it will be the same. So what we believe is that we can use this the solutions hub based on the sectors to say, okay, world, everybody who's concerned about this, and that's a wide range of people because, the thing about chemtrails is it's, first of all, is it happening? And then it's what is it? And then it's why is it? And, I met plenty of people who said that they were skeptical about chemtrails. And it's a funny comment because I actually believe that to be skeptical about something, you have to be engaged in learning about it. If you don't know about it, you can't be skeptical. That's just closed-minded. So, and with chemtrails, what happens is the smallest amount of immersion in facts, and you find out that it's absolutely documented that there is aerial spray of chemicals in our atmosphere. All over the world that's happening. And, you can maybe, even if you look up like with the U.S. Weather Modification Association, I know you look that up, they'll say there's 32 states have legislation dealing with it. And that, China acknowledges cloud seeding. They did it before the 2008 Olympics. So the fact of there being spray and the fact of it having aluminum and barium, that's documented and just factual. Where you get into speculation is why is it happening? And so what I would do, my hope for this is that people don't need to agree on why. They need to simply agree that it's happening and that it is against the law for that to be happening because there is a law against it's something called a common rule for the protection of human subjects. That's what it's called, and it's part of the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, and it says that people are not allowed to be experimented on and that there always has to be informed consent. So the fact that we don't have informed consent and information about the impact of aluminum and barium means that whether it's for weather modification or whether it's for reflecting the sun back because of climate change or whether it's to create a special advantage for Monsanto, who has a patent on aluminum resistant seeds, or whether it's for depopulation. Like, you can believe any number of things about why, but in the past that's divided people. And I believe for a real solution, we need to say that people can join together by what they think is happening, the whys of it. But that's second to our right to not be sprayed, which I think you have a much bigger group who will say, even if I think there's no insidious reason for this, I agree that people should be informed about what's being sprayed. And in this notion of sharing best practices and data, another strategic, intelligent thing to do is to say, well, what's the history of this kind of stuff? Like it turned out in 2007 with the aerial spray here in Northern California. With the Freedom of Information Act, we were able to find out that the spray had endocrine disruptors and mutagens and carcinogens, and we did more research, and it's a documented fact that the United States government has been convicted 30 times of doing toxic experimentation on citizens, from, whether whole cities and towns to Native Americans on reservations and inmates. And anyway, that's all actually at thrivemovement.com. We did fact-checking for everything that we mention in the movie. And so on the movie section of the site, you can go to fact-checking and find the sources for all of this. But my point is that we can scan the history and say, and then inform ourselves in a strategy from there and say, look, if we know that there's been experimenting with toxins, we better go for finding out, all the work like Dane Wigington and Clifford Carnicom and Morgan Carey and Michael Murphy. I mean, these folks have done tremendous research into what's in this stuff and what are some of the potential health and environmental consequences. And so we take all that, and that informs class action lawsuits and Freedom of Information Act and education. And, when human fertility is down 50%, I'm 60 years old. When I had kids, it was not just commonplace that people couldn't get pregnant. Nowadays, with my daughters and their friends, it's like, it's a real issue. Fertility is a real issue. When you realize that the substances in these aerial sprays have endocrine disruptors, that means if impact fertility, then maybe people in the media section decide to run some ads in young women's magazines and say, hey, you want to learn more about this and get involved? I think we would have a massive movement on our hands. So I'm very confident that we could, in fact, and will, in fact, succeed in stopping chemtrails, because I think it's a matter of being strategic and organized about how we go about it and taking advantage of the huge amount of work that has been done, but which has been done in a way that's been kind of isolated to the folks doing it and hasn't been able to have this coordinated impact. So, in fact, one of the things that we are going to be focusing on, our intention for the next 2 years from Thrive Movement, is to use the Solutions Hub to take on chemtrails globally, to kind of teach the model of whole system solutioning by using chemtrails as an example, and then archiving that process so that people can be applying it, whether they're dealing with GMOs or fluoride or whatever other issue, banking, whatever it is they want to take on. So I believe that I believe success begets success, and I believe that, one of the ways this came about is Foster and I just went, gosh, we're so encouraged because we have the visceral experience of having taken on this mammoth project. I mean, $1 billion earmarked from Bush down through Homeland Security and U.S. Department of Agriculture. Like, that's a powerful Goliath, And to watch that it was our organizational capacity that allowed us to be so effective. And in fact, there was one of the emails that we saw as a result of our Freedom of Information Act query was that there was an email between the California Department of Agriculture and U.S. Department where it said, we had anticipated some resistance from Santa Cruz, but we didn't expect it to be so well organized. So I think So that's what informs my hope and our kind of phase 2 strategy for Thrive Movement, which is, we've put out the movie. We're going to continue to have the movie get out into the mainstream. This million views a month has not been the result of marketing. Foster's done tons of interviews to help people learn about it, but other than that, we never had a marketing or PR campaign. So we're hoping to continue to get the movie out, but what we really want to focus on is this solutions hub and empowering people in whatever it is that they're doing to do it in a coordinated and organized way and to take advantage of each other's work. So, we rely on donations and people buying the DVD at thrivemovement.com to support this kind of work. So if it's something that you value, I encourage you to support Thrive Movement and also to sign up on the Solutions Hub, because right now you can join and start a group and you can share things with that group. What's going to be coming as we launch this next phase will be the ability to share the best practices in a way that anybody can access it from any group around the world, and a whole system for making this globally. I mean, we have over 80 countries now represented, but to deal with the whole language issue, to make it so that there can be a good translation system also for people. So yes, I'm hopeful that we can take on chemtrails effectively and stop it, and I believe that when we do, what will happen is that people will have what we have, which is the confidence that we can do that with everything that we're confronted with.
Wow, you've pretty much answered almost all my other questions. So, well, let's just address a couple things that came up during the workshop, and you mentioned just briefly earlier on, and that is the ability for people to participate in their area of brilliance, in their area that they're most passionate about, and also there's various levels that they can participate at. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that throughout our lives, I don't think this is a constant, but I think it's always true that there's one level or another that we're most inclined to engage at a given time. It might be in the issue of homelessness, let's say. It might be that you are inclined to take food and blankets and get shelter immediately for someone in need. That would be an immediate needs intervention. Another would be to see what are the systems that are creating this kind of homelessness, where you look at what goes on for vets and the lack of care that they have, and the whole situation with the interface with housing and jobs and, the systems that create the problem. And then, so for someone else it would be systemic intervention that they would be naturally inclined toward. And then for someone else it would be to help educate people about what is the consciousness that allows us to actually accept homelessness as a part of our human reality. Many people would say, well, it must just be part of what's necessary. And I would challenge that, and I think the work on the consciousness level would be to challenge that, like, why? Why on this glorious planet with, resilient, brilliant, caring people, do we have to have the notion that starvation and homelessness are inevitable? And what would it be? What would it take for us to change that and to shift the systems and the immediate situation as a result of shifting that? So I think dealing on a consciousness level, a systems level, or immediate needs intervention, each one of us, and that doesn't mean that they don't overlap or that you don't have multiple passions, but there's only so much time in a day, and people will be inclined toward one of those levels of engagement or another. And so to kind of say, right now this is the one that suits me. And what's so satisfying about this Solutions Hub or the Solutions Workshop that we're doing is you get a group in a room and you find out it's all covered. Just people organizing around one common concern, you find out that, a third of the people want to intervene immediately, and a third want to deal with the systems, and a third want to deal with the consciousness. every sector's covered. There's someone who's most passionately drawn to one sector or another. So, the third component of it is to have people reflect on what is their purpose. And I think that that's kind of one of the, missing questions in our natural solutioning process here. It's like, what are you uniquely here to do? And what do you need to do to know that about yourself and claim it about yourself and then live it? Because the process of identifying what's your unique purpose, not your goal, but your a purpose, then what happens is you can live in alignment with that. You can align your behavior with it. And it's the most, invigorating, empowering experience imaginable to live a purposeful life and to live aligned with that purpose. So that's what the Solutions Hub is all about, and it's the thing that excites us, and it's the reason we made Thrive really to begin with, was to have like a minimum sufficient understanding of what's going on and what's in our way of thriving so that we can engage more intelligently and effectively and coordinatedly in our solutions.
The last time I looked, I believe there was already over 650 solutions hubs set up around the world. It's kind of cool when you look at the map because it's pretty much on every continent.
I know. I love it. And I'm so excited because, we can really take advantage. Like, I really think this notion of getting just facts, like I'm a fact gal, let me find out what can I say for sure about chemtrails. And it's that they are happening, that they have aluminum and barium in them, and that it's documented. For example, like to have China acknowledge that they do this kind of cloud seeding. That's very helpful in a global movement, right? Because then we take the data from China and bring it into America, and it can inform some of the questions we'll know to go for asking because we can see how it works from one country to another, because I believe it's a global program. I know it's a global program, so we can take advantage of what's happening in the different countries through a global solutions hub like this, and move things along, a lot faster than if we're just doing it city by city.
Could you just go over once again how people can get involved? I believe they can either join an existing group or if they want,
they can start their own group. Yeah, you just go to thrivemovement.com and go to Solutions Hub, and then you sign up, and you can do it by area, zip code, or by issue. So I think that there's over 40, groups signed up dealing with chemtrails, and we're just so excited to get on with this. I have to tell you, it takes a lot of money and planning and infrastructure to do some kind of a global, webinar where once we say, okay, we're going to do this and let's divvy it up and go. But it's something that we're doing our strategic planning for now, and part of it is to just have this place where we can get the information because. Like I said, I just kind of like to unpack things. I look at chemtrails and I go, okay, what are all the things involved in that line going over my head here, putting these chemicals down? There's a plan. Like somebody has a plan that has some goal associated with it. There are contracts with planes and pilots and scientists determining the contents and the deals with the manufacturers and the suppliers of aluminum and barium and all the other chemicals and compounds in it. And then there's an agreement to keep it out of the news because you never hear the weather reporters talking about it. I remember Foster and I were at an event once where we met the head of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and asked her about chemtrails. She's like, oh, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. It's like, how does that happen? There's kind of clues in that. The fact that all of the information that we're garnering, we're having to garner through our own grassroots efforts, all these organizations all over the place, rather than having, the news tell us about it. And so whenever that's the case, I look for financial incentive. Who's benefiting from this plan? And until we unpack that, we don't even know what we're dealing with. And so that's where we take advantage of the work that, all these great people are doing there, but also add to it our own kind of strategic questions. It's like, okay, so who owns the planes? Who is manufacturing the chemicals? Who's distributing them? And what is the financial incentive? When you look at, like I mentioned, Monsanto having a patent on aluminum-resistant seeds, and you see that what's being sprayed is aluminum, as an investigative person, I would want to, check that out and see what's the connection and how does the money flow in that. And I think once you see that, and then you see the contents, and you also see the history of this kind of stuff. I mean, I think it goes back to 1890s, the first documented human experimentation in this country, and there were syphilis experiments that the Tuskegee Institute did in the 1930s. There was biological waste dumping in the 1990s. There was weird, mysterious, deadly Army vaccine stuff in the 21st century. Like, that's all documented. So once you know that, you start going, okay, so we need to consider all of the possibilities in this spray, get the information, and we need to stop it, first off, because even if you think it's okay, whatever they, even if you think that there's nothing insidious going on and that experts should be able to do whatever they want to do, you still can't say, first of all, fine, those people can say that. I think you'll find the vast majority of people on this planet would say it's not all right to spray dangerous chemicals over human and animal and earth populations in this covert way. That's simply unacceptable, and it needs to stop. So I think we've got the majority of people on the planet who would want to join this team of people to stop it if we could put it out in a way that they can relate to and that's very strategic and that they get to do the part they're interested in and not all the rest.
I have been involved in the past somewhat in the chemtrail movement, and I know there are people who have been involved for over 10 years with a lot of frustration, trying to contact their congressman and or going to the media and this and that, and none of that's worked. Right. And I know Foster actually mentioned that right at the beginning of the workshop. If you think our politicians are going to solve this, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And so the only way it's going to get solved is if the people work together to do that. And that was one of the concepts, one of the ideas that I tried to weave into that article, that this is evolutionary for us, for people to work together around the globe for the better good of all and,
right.
And thrive.
Yeah. I think, it's worth mentioning here, one of the things we learned during the moth spray that has informed all of our work since, I learned from Yvonne Peter. He was one of the people in Thrive. He was the youngest ever chief of a Native American tribe up in Alaska, the Nitsa-Gwich'in tribe. And I had worked with him, and so, here he is from this community that's been working effectively for 1,000 years together. And I said to him, how do you solve problems and conflict in your tribe? Because everybody seems to have so much trouble all the time actually working out the human part of this whole deal. Even if we get strategic and intelligent, it's like then there's all the personalities that create all the problems. And he taught us something, which was that the way that they deal with dissent, so let's say people want to move ahead with a particular lawsuit, a class action lawsuit against chemtrails or something, and there's somebody who thinks that it's premature because there's still more data that they think needs to happen. Instead of, I don't know if that's a good example, but we'll run with it. The point is that if there's a dissenting opinion, about any action that's being taken, that opinion is kept on the table, and every subsequent meeting it's revisited to find out whether or not the concern has turned out to be valid, that, oops, it did look like we were premature and we needed this additional data, let's hold off, we're going to get that data and then resubmit, or nope, it's going ahead and it's sufficient as is, and the person no longer has the concern that they initially had. But the point is, no one gets shut up and shut out. The concerns are all considered useful and valid, and they're simply staying there for intelligent, respectful inclusion all the time. And the other, and which has really made a big difference besides just this kind of majority rule where, you can have people with concerns that then they just feel that their voice isn't valued when in fact we need everybody. And the other part of it is, there are people who are really best working alone, even though they might be part of a solutions group. And, we had a guy like that on the moth spray who did the most brilliant research on the environmental impact. And in fact, it was his research that helped provide the, an addendum on our lawsuit that was very helpful. But personality-wise, it was really difficult to work with. So it's like, look, let's just be real here. You're not enjoying the group experience. We're not enjoying the group experience with you. And we really value what you have to offer and all your passion about this. So how do we make this work that doesn't just overrule somebody but finds a natural and true way for them to participate? And one of the sectors is relations. And this is where conflict resolution comes in. And one of the first things we do with the solutioning process is identify who are some skilled conflict resolution people in the room right off the bat or in our hub who will be able to help rely on when the things that are going to emerge. And so we're not, going about naively assuming that it's going to suddenly be a miraculous experience. It's going to be a human experience, and that's going to include everybody getting a little bigger than they're inclined to be on behalf of a solution that, these are obviously excruciatingly pressing issues that we're facing. And the notion of human fertility being down 50% and being sprayed with things that are disrupting the endocrine system in childbearing people and their children, like, wow, that is a really intense reality, and it's just one of many of those, very serious things that we're being confronted with. So I think the time has come to get as creative and effective as possible in our problem-solving skills, and that includes how to get along with each other. So I'll be forever grateful to Yvonne and the notion of not just shutting people up, but actually keeping dissent on the table so that we can continue to learn from it and people can recognize that we actually do need everybody and everybody's valued.
You mentioned earlier several names, Clifford Carnicom, who's been researching chemtrails, like I said, for over 10 years, also Morgellons and whatnot, Michael Murphy, who, of course, made What in the World Are They Spraying? Why in the World Are They Spraying? And I believe next up is Who in the World is Spraying, or something like that?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And then you also mentioned Dane, Wigington?
Who lives, and at Geoengineering Watch, which is really important work that he does a lot of the scientific data. And, here's where I want to add one. And also Morgan Carey, who does fantastic work on all this. And, I know where people go off on it is that often the information that's factual gets mixed up with the information that's speculative. So somebody doing fabulous research on, that it's happening and what's in it can then come out and say, and they're doing this for population reduction, right? Well, there are a lot of people who would be with you on that it's happening and that it includes these ingredients and they're dangerous, but they don't share the belief that it could be motivated by something like population reduction. And this is where, critical thinking is a art we need to resurrect here to be able to take advantage of the information and be discerning and say, like with my research that I've done with in the course of making Thrive, I got, really educated about all kinds of things that at once would have seemed impossible to me and have subsequently now become a part of my reality. But that's because I had the opportunity to do that. We don't need everybody to agree on why this is happening. We need everybody who believes that it's a violation of our right to clean air to participate in helping us to stop it. That's what we need, and to not get in the way of those of us who are working to stop it. So I think that I'm very grateful to everybody for the work that's been done, and I encourage anyone who's just getting educated about it to, take the best of what you see from these sources, and if something doesn't fit, that doesn't mean to throw it all out. It means then get educated yourself and figure out what is it that you think would be motivating these kinds of situations with a spray like this. What ideas do you have, and how do you justify that answer? So, I think this whole thing about getting facts is really valuable and can increase the number of participants.
I can't agree more. I had a number of conversations with Rosalind Peterson about this. She kind of schooled me on it, telling me that, putting information out there that isn't substantiated with proven facts can actually be more damaging when you're putting misinformation out there, because you're opening yourself up to criticism and attack, and there's enough information available that can be substantiated, like what you had mentioned earlier on, that there's no need to do that. We have enough information right now to move forward with coming up with some solutions. So I agree with what you said earlier. That is, we don't necessarily have to agree why they're doing it or what it's for, or even what all the damage that is being caused by it. But we do just need to acknowledge that it is happening, and it's violating our human rights, and we need to stop it, and we need to do that by working together. And as far as I know, the best tool available to facilitate that is the Thrive Solutions Hub.
Well, thank you. That's what, our whole thing has been to provide what isn't already there. We're not interested in, we don't want to be a big organization or be doing what other people are already doing well. That's not our point. We looked and saw, this agenda is so well organized and coordinated, and our solutions aren't. But the solutions are there, the people are there, the intelligence. I mean, one of the things about Thrive being so popular that's so rewarding is that it's an intelligent movie. We really made it addressing people as intelligent, caring people. And the fact that it's, people have voluntarily translated it into an additional 13 languages from the 10 we put it out in, it's like that takes a lot to translate a movie. It's because they feel that it's valuable in their communities and cultures. And there are so many intelligent people around this world who, we're at a tipping point. It's like I think that this consolidation of power and wealth has gotten so crass and obvious and consequential, overtly consequential, that people are waking up and they are not going to take it. And so it's not for a lack of good, intelligent people. It is for a lack of effective organizing tools that I think we're in, partly in the position that we're in. So that's why we chose to put the resources that we get from people buying the DVD and donations at thrivemovement.com into facilitating this Solutions Hub. And then, it's just a free thing. People can take it and use it, and all we ask for people to participate is that they use the same terminology for the sectors so that we can actually coordinate effectively and not be, thinking, well, did you mean, this by calling it something different? The sectors are laid out, and we worked those out with 8 other organizations to begin with Barbara Marks Hubbard and the Shift Project, and all of them, we have the same names for the sectors. And then the other is that whatever your solution, it not violate, that it doesn't create any new violations in the process of solving a problem. And, that sounds kind of obvious, but there are a lot of ways that can happen. And the other thing is that it just it's more effective. Like if you look, for example, at let's see, tourism in Indonesia, which has positive economic impact for a while anyway, with devastating environmental impact. That's a lack of coordination in a solution. So using the Solutions Hub, the other thing about it is provides an opportunity for, where you don't make a problem in one area while you're solving a problem in another.
Well, our hours are just about up. I just wanted to say from my heart, I so much appreciate the work that you and Foster have done, not only in informing the people as to the problems in the movie Thrive, but providing a tool that facilitates solutions. And so I just want to thank you once again from the bottom of my heart for what you've done and what you continue to do, and just ask you if you have any parting words.
Well, I want to thank you, and I also want to acknowledge our team and all the people around the world who have made this possible for us, and to say that really independent media is a huge part of what's necessary in the overall solution strategy. And so your show and the intelligent articles and cohering that you do, we dearly appreciate and recognize for its important role in the whole process of moving from here to a thriving world. So I'm grateful to you, and I'm just deeply empowered in general by the exposure that I've had these last 16 months since putting Thrive out, and having a chance to interact with the millions of intelligent, caring, ready, awake people around the world. So thank you for your work and for this opportunity to share more about the Solutions Hub at thrivemovement.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly.
Okay. Thanks, Ross.